Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Come Back to Love. This is Robyn Vogel, and we are on Dream Vision's 7 Radio Network. Welcome to those of you that have been tuning in every week, and welcome to our new listeners. It's really good to have you here. This is the show where I talk about love and intimacy and sex and relationship and all that good stuff. And I have amazing guests that are also contributing insights and stories and wisdom and tools and their own journeys that all relate to their journey back to love. Thank you for being here. We're live on every Thursday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And then you can find us on any one of your favorite podcast platforms. This is an amazing syndicated show that shows up all around the world, and I'm so honored and so grateful to be here. And today we have a special guest, Francine Tirrell from Forever Changed Coaching. Uh, Francine and I have been colleagues for a couple of years, well, longer, but we just didn't know each other. But we've known of each other for a couple of years. And I'm really looking forward to diving in. You have done some actually really amazing things in your life that I think people will be very curious to hear about. And I know you've recently rebranded yourself because actually you have rebranded yourself, um, like your being and yourself. And so it'll be interesting to dive into that if you feel
Yes,
like. Yeah.
I'm
So
excited to be here.
welcome. Yeah, thank you. Welcome. And I just want to remind listeners that they can tune in anywhere, that they can listen to the radio. You can listen in your car, you can listen while you're walking on our app. You can even ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 radio and tune in to Come Back to Love. So here we are today. Welcome, Francine.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I'd love to start with the name of your business actually, which is Forever
Mm,
Changed Coaching. And I met you just before, I think I met you like you can clarify, but kind of as you were in a transition of rebranding, of doing what you were doing before and what you're doing now. And so when I saw the rebrand, the Forever Changed, I thought, yes, the what I know about Francine so far is that you experience like a massive change in your life. And so I wonder
mm,
if we could start
yes.
there.
Yeah, sure. So I've been a coach for, I don't know, 12 or 13 years. And my first name, I won't get into all the details, but when I told it to people, they were like, that's a great idea. But then I had to explain it to everyone and people spelt it wrong. So it was just a lot. So I've been full time in my business since 2020. And Forever Change kind of came about because I wanted to change the name and I wanted to brand and the whole bit. And I really believe that when you take the time to do your inner work, you are forever changed, right? No matter how much or how little work you do, you are forever changed. I have conversations with clients where they're like, okay, so I had this big aha, now what? Like you just keep living your life until you have the next aha, right? And then it goes even deeper, right? So the more work you do, the deeper you go and the more changed you are. So that's really where Forever Changed came from, because once we're willing to look at ourselves and look inward, you are changed. You are forever changed.
True. Thank you for that introduction. What happened in your life that had you feel forever changed? I mean,
Yeah.
probably each
Ooh.
of us have many stories, but I have a feeling there was one big aha.
Yeah, there were probably a couple because I've had, I would say both physical, spiritual, emotional, all of it. So I just turned 60 this year. I'm
You,
still struggling saying that.
you
So.
mean sexty, right?
60, yes, that's what it is. Thank
Yes.
you.
Welcome.
And 30 years ago, when I was 30, I weighed probably somewhere in the ballpark of 300 pounds. I never weighed myself, so I only guess. And I probably am half of that at this point, right? So in my
Wow.
early 30s, I lost over 100 pounds. And
Wow.
I've had that, 20 pounds up and down. So but based on when you ask me, I'm probably anywhere from 120 to 150 pounds loss. So the
Wow.
physical part came first, but it was more unconscious. It really wasn't a conscious decision. I was eating 3 meals a day out of my house and I couldn't afford to do that anymore. So I started bringing, my meals. And then when I noticed the change, I put more effort into it. So the physical change was probably the first change. And then when I got into my 40s, I looked around and I was like, where did all my girlfriends go? Right? Like, I don't have children. So a lot of my friends with kids were spending their time, raising children. And where we didn't have them, that was just a different path. Right. So we were like, we want to go out. We want to go away with people. We want to go away with friends. I'm like, where did all my girlfriends go? So I found this women's group. It was called Magic Parties. And it was a group of coaches. So now this is probably 15 years ago, where coaching was not the buzzword that it is today. Nobody even knew what a coach was 15 years ago. But each month they met and they had these different topics. And I was like, oh my God, I found my people. I love these women. And so I would go to the monthly meetups, and then the facilitator had 2 retreats a year. So I was meeting all these amazing women. But what I was noticing was, I want to be a coach, right? I was a leader in corporate. So I was kind of coaching my team, but I wanted to lead, I wanted to do more. Well, I looked into going to coaching school, and it was not inexpensive. And I thought, well, this is a really expensive hobby, right? Or just something I was interested in. So I put it off for a couple of years. And then about 13 years ago, a good friend dropped dead of a heart attack at the age of 50.
Oh,
And
wow.
at the time, I was just about turning 48, and my mom died at 48. So for a long time, that was my story, that I was going to be dead at 48. I think the week after the funeral, I called the school and I said, when does the next program start? What's the student loan look like? I think I paid $120 a month for up until, I don't know, I paid it off a couple of years ago. And I went to coaching school, but I still had my own limiting beliefs. I couldn't quit my day job. I couldn't, how am I gonna, survive if I quit, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And I was doing my work, and I also got my Reiki certification. And then I went to the Reese Thomas Institute, which is an energy healing school. So I was doing all this work partly for me, but also to share with what clients I had at the time and the people I work with. Because as I was in a corporate setting, I was doing Reiki in my office if somebody had a headache, right? So I was starting to bring that into my corporate setting. And then in December of 2019, I was with a startup that didn't quite start up, and they closed the doors.
Mm.
And of course, in January, started looking for a job because that's what you do. And then this little thing called COVID happened. And in April of 2020, somebody reached out and said, hey, are you coaching? And I was like, sure, because what else am I doing right now, right?
Right.
Besides painting my entire house. So I started taking clients on. And what I noticed was I do a lot of, I work a lot with women, and myself included, that live in their head. So a lot of the work that I do is like feeling it in your body. What are you noticing in your body? So I was still looking for a job because I was collecting unemployment, and that's what you do. And every time I had an interview, I could feel the constriction in my body. And every time I coached someone, I could feel the expansion. And I
Mm.
finally said to my husband, we got to figure this out because my body is telling me something. It is saying you absolutely have to be doing this.
Mm.
And then unemployment ran out. And I was like, okay, I guess we're doing this coaching thing. So I did that. And then in 2021, I joined a company as a professional matchmaker, and I was with them for about 3 years. And I did that along with date and relationship coaching. So I've kind of merged that with some of the work that I do, because a lot of the work that I do is helping mostly women entrepreneurs or women in corporate that maybe have a side gig really stop second guessing themselves
Mm.
and really break those patterns so that they can move ahead. And oftentimes the patterns aren't just about the job, they become about the relationship, whether it's with your partner or friends, right? So it's the whole of you. So I really work with the whole of my clients. So I've done the work so that I can now support my clients in doing their work.
Yes. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So you're not doing matchmaking anymore, but of course that is probably
Yep.
our listeners are like, ooh, tell us about
Yes.
that.
Right. It really was a fascinating experience. And part of me is sad I'm not still with the company. But it was, I've been with my husband for 25 years. So if 30 years ago I weighed 300 pounds and I've only been with my husband 25, I wasn't dating a lot. So
Mm,
it was really fascinating to me to see the things that people say and do to keep themselves out of relationship.
mm,
It was really, some of the what I would call red flags, or what they call red flags, that I would just think, I would, that wasn't a red flag to me, but it was their story, but it was really to keep them safe and out of relationship.
yes. Do you have any, can you share any of those things that you would?
Sure. One that always stands out to me was this woman who, there were two that stand out. This one woman who was probably in her 60s, very set in her ways. And every time so I was coaching her, I wasn't her matchmaker. And every time her matchmaker set her out on a date, there was something wrong, to the point where one of them was, and he wore his phone on his belt buckle. Exactly, right? Your eyes just rolled. Right? I tried to not do that to the client,
Okay.
right? And I was like,
Seems pretty handy, resourceful.
right. And my husband used to wear it because of what he did for work, right? But like that was her deal breaker.
Mm.
Like that was a deal breaker for her. Another was a gentleman rode a bike to the date and he
Oh,
was a little sweaty. And I was like, maybe he just really wanted to get there and he didn't have a car, right? Like there
yeah.
was no possibility. She left nothing for possibility.
Mm.
But then I worked with another woman who was also in her 60s, and age is, everyone over the age of 50 thinks nobody their age is as young or as active as them. So there's a lot of stories that are told.
Yeah.
This woman had a drop dead. She wouldn't date someone over a certain age, like call it late 60s. And because of the work that we were doing, when her matchmaker presented a gentleman that was in his 70s, she took a chance and went out. And it ended up being that they dated for a little while. And she said, because of the work that we did, I gave it a shot. And she's like, on their second date, I think he took her like riding around Central Park. And she was like, I couldn't keep up with him. Right. But we create these stories. I don't want to be a caretaker. I don't want to take care of someone. Well, you can take care of a 40-year-old if something happens to them.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
yeah, the stories that people tell themselves. Height is a really big thing. Age is a really big thing. Like it's fascinating. Like you would let an inch determine whether or not this is your perfect match.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Let's just continue to say what you said where you started actually, which was any reason to not be in relationship or to
right,
allow what I would say is like the parts that are protective and afraid to step in.
right,
And there can be any reason. It could be someone's name,
right, right.
right?
Yeah,
I don't like that name. I can't imagine calling a person that name
yeah.
or of
And
course,
even
oh.
race. I had people that wouldn't even date their own race,
Mm-hmm.
let alone other races. Like it was just a really fascinating experience. And I met my husband on a blind date.
Mm-hmm.
So I always share with them, like my husband is not somebody if I was on an app or in a bar, he is not somebody I would have chosen for myself.
Yeah.
Right. So allowing yourself the possibility, and it was the company I worked for, it was a completely blind dating. So
Mm.
first impressions, and men and women are very different. And that took a lot for me to recognize, because I had men be like, I would set them up with what I would consider a very attractive woman, and they would rip her apart in our follow-up call. She was this, she was that, and I would, and then I would have to talk to my trainer. I'd be like, I'm really triggered right now because how can he say that? But men are, if it's not an instant reaction, they will really rarely give it a second chance, where
Oh,
women are a little bit more open to giving it a second chance.
yeah. I always tell people go on that second date because the first date, so many people are
Especially a blind
nervous,
date.
especially blind dates. Yeah.
Right,
People are so nervous and like, there are people that are feel relaxed and open, but it's not the norm. And
right.
I think giving people another chance to like be more of themselves,
Right.
you know.
And, with the company I worked for, we planned the date. So I set it up,
Wow,
right? So I would like go to this restaurant, meet each other, and go have fun. Like, go do something that you both want to do and
interesting.
see what happens, right? Go play miniature golf, go bowling, go walk at the park, go
Mhm.
do something and then
Yes.
see.
Yes,
But if we've already made that decision,
right.
we don't allow for possibility.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And just to drop in one more piece of that, there's a difference between sitting across from somebody and having coffee and just talking and doing something fun together. And some
Absolutely.
people are excellent at that cross the table, sipping coffee conversation, and some people aren't.
Right.
You're not going to get like the full picture of who they are on either side if you only do that one thing and then rule them in
Right.
or out, right? Even a walk.
And yeah, and the nerves. Like I had one gentleman, he was one of my favorite clients, matchmaking clients, and I got feedback from one of the dates that he didn't ask her any questions, that was a theme that I would hear from women around men. Like they would do a lot of talking, but not necessarily asking questions. I think by nature, men just aren't as curious. So I shared that feedback with this person because I knew, like, usually if I heard a pattern, I would share it, but I knew he would be open to it. So once he heard that, he instantly Googled, like, what questions can I ask on a date? Right. So that his next date, he felt more prepared. And right.
Right,
So, like, it was also an opportunity for them to learn about themselves if they were willing to hear it. Not everyone was.
right,
Right.
right. Not everybody wants that feedback.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is
Because it's
really
hard
tricky.
feedback. It's
Yeah, exactly.
vulnerable.
Yes, it's vulnerable, and I'm giving you credit for sharing it with people openly
Yeah.
because that's not that easy to do,
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's part of, I often said the matchmaking process wasn't necessarily about me finding you your person. This is about you learning about yourself,
Yes.
right? And just by opening up, the person could, it may not come from one of the dates that I connect with you, but you've now opened yourself up. Right. Because I would talk about love languages. Do you know what your love language is? Do you know what your attachment style is? I had one woman when I was coaching her, we talked about attachment styles, and she recognized that by learning about attachment styles, it gave her clarity on what went wrong in her past relationship with her partner. She's like, "Oh, I can now see what his attachment style is, and now this all makes sense to me."
Mm,
Right? So just having
yes.
that sense of knowing yourself, right? Because you can't be in relationship with others if you're not in relationship with yourself.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And such a good, like laboratory, with some of the clients that I work with that want me to support them in dating. I mean, mostly it's not what I do, but sometimes I do. And
Yeah.
it's just practice. It's like, go practice.
Right.
Practice being more vulnerable, practice speaking your truth, practice saying no, thank you, practice saying what you want, which
Yeah.
is it's hard. Some people they find it so hard to say no, thank you to someone that at the end of a first date, it's also really hard to say the opposite, like, I would really like to have a second date with you,
Right.
you know?
And one of the things people would say, I don't want to feel rejected.
Hmm.
And I would try to shift that because you aren't going to want to date everyone that you go out on. And are you rejecting them or are you choosing you? And they would
Right.
say, well, I'm choosing me. Okay. So the same happens on the other side of the fence,
Yes. Yes.
right? But
And
it's
that's
just
such a
harder to
big
feel
one.
that way.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. It's such a big one. I think there's I'm just thinking of some of the in-person workshops that I do where there's people choosing partners or engaging or not engaging. And I always talk about like honoring the other person in their yes or their no. And when they say no, they're loving themselves. And that's a beautiful thing.
Right.
appreciate about them. And also not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to love yourself. I mean,
Right.
our whole
Right. To
business
choose
is
yourself. Because so,
choose yourself.
especially
Yeah.
as women, we're so often choosing everyone else,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So now we're choosing ourselves and it becomes very uncomfortable. Yeah.
Exactly. 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 Wow, I'm so glad we talked about this piece because
Yeah.
I've been curious and also I know that this has been really fascinating. We're
Yeah.
going to go on a quick commercial break and probably come back to a slightly different topic, but we'll be right back. Welcome everybody back to Come Back to Love Radio. We are here with Francine Tirrell from Forever Changed Coaching, and I'm Robyn Vogel, your love and intimacy coach and radio show host for Dream Vision 7. I'm really enjoying this conversation and especially the conversation during our commercial break, a little more about the matchmaking business. It's a fascinating business, so thank you for sharing it with our listeners. And I think it's something that I know our listeners, most of them are probably doing online dating, which people have a love-hate relationship with. And not a lot of people, I mean, probably you know better than me, but I would say it takes courage to do matchmaking on either
It
side.
really does. And
So
I think there's support there. Like I would recommend, I mean, if I was ever single again, I think I would do matchmaking over the
you would.
apps, right? I think I
Wow.
would because there's support there. The apps, I've heard horror story. I mean, I've heard great stories, but I've heard horror stories with apps as well. But I think with matchmaking, somebody is vetting the person for you. And
Nice.
there's some, I don't want to say, I don't know if it's safety, but there's some comfort in that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Okay, a little plug on the radio show this week for matchmaking.
There you go.
So let's shift because we did talk about the ways that you've made some change and some transformation in your life, and most recently during COVID and shifting the way that you've been working. And so, what's been most alive for you in the last couple of years or this week?
Yeah. So I talk a lot with my clients, and it's been work that I've had to work on is this addiction to busyness. Um,
Oof.
yeah, right. And when I say it, so many, and I work primarily with women. I have worked with men, but most of my work is with women.
Hmm.
And I, I my own struggle or love-hate relationship with busyness, right? It's a place of comfort, right? We have different addictions. We have addiction to food, addiction to alcohol, addiction to drugs, addiction to busyness. The difference is you're fat, you're a drunk, you're an addict, but when you're busy, you get atta girls. Look at you, you successful woman getting all the stuff done,
Right.
right? And often it is attached to our worthiness, right? Our worth. A couple of years ago, I was supposed to go to a 3-day workshop and chose not to go at the last minute. So I had 3 days off. So the first morning I woke up and I said, "Oh, I'm going to go sit and read a book." And I was reading, and about a half an hour in, I could feel like I was getting antsy. And I was like, oh, I have to go do something. But having done the work that I've done, I kind of stopped myself and I was like, but you have nothing to do. Like, there's nothing on my calendar because I wasn't even supposed to be here. So
Yeah.
I'm an EFT practitioner, tapping, for those that don't know it. EFT is a technique that I use to really get to the subconscious of what's underneath the thing. So I sat and I tapped on it. And really what I got to was if I'm not doing, I'm not worthy, right? My worth is attached to doing. I have people that I cannot hear from for years, but if they need something, they reach out to me, right? So I even get external validation of my value to others, right? So I tapped on that, brought the number down, the feeling of it down, and continued to sit and read my book. Um,
Hmm.
with clients, I sit because we're not willing to sit in the discomfort.
Yes,
We
exactly.
have to be, I did not weigh 300 pounds because I was hungry. Let's be clear.
Right.
right?
Right.
So we don't overdrink because we're thirsty. We don't do drugs because it's just there, right?
Right.
There are things underneath that we're feeding or don't want to feel,
Hmm.
and busyness is one of them,
Yeah.
right?
So
So
true.
we don't want to feel that discomfort. So a lot of the work I do with my clients is sitting in that discomfort. Because once you can sit on it and get to the other side and recognize, oh, I'm safe, I'm okay, then you create more space the next time that feeling comes up and you allow yourself a little bit more time to feel uncomfortable.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling, it's funny, before we hopped on today, I was like, I wonder if today I'm going to invite our listeners to pause for a moment.
Hmm.
And I guess I had an intuition about our topic.
I guess so. Yeah.
I am going to invite, before I even comment on what you said, to just invite everybody to just pause for a moment and take a breath.
And I would like to add, feel your feet on the floor,
Hmm.
right? Often we don't even feel our body.
Hmm. Yes. And if you're driving, that's fine. Just bring your awareness to your feet,
Yes.
right? Yeah, just pausing and taking a breath, so much a part of both of our works, the work that we do,
Yeah.
bringing people into more connection with themselves, connection with their bodies, connection with their feelings. And so just taking a moment, even when you're listening to a radio show or a podcast, to take a pause. So, so helpful.
We so often forget to breathe. Like
Absolutely.
just taking 3 deep breaths changes how we
Hmm.
feel.
Yes. Yeah, it really does. It regulates the nervous system
Yeah.
like right away. It slows down the heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can shift you from sympathetic, activated nervous system to more of a parasympathetic, relaxed way of being, which is certainly the place, we want to come from when we're making decisions, when we're going out on a date, when we're stepping
Right.
into a work project or engaging with a child, whatever, or a partner, whatever it is, like the more grounded and present and connected we are, the better.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that you've been focusing on busyness. For one thing, I think the world is speeding up, like increasing in its
Right.
speed, just
Yeah.
with AI happening, like things that used to take all day can take 5 minutes. So everything's
Right.
going faster and faster and faster. And it's easy to stay busy. Um, I was with, I guess she might listen to this, so I won't say who it was, but I was with somebody that I'm very close with recently, and I asked them what they were going to do with this free time they had between when we were together and when we were going to be together again in a couple hours. And they said, I'm just going to be with my phone. And as sort of a joke, they said, 24/7 now.
Right.
And I get it. This person doesn't have a whole lot of social connection for various reasons, and it's comfort. It's companionship, it's comfort, it's all of these things. Now that's kind of about the technology, but it's also about what you just said, like keeping yourself kind of engaged and
Right.
busy, so not to feel the discomfort of
Yeah.
whatever feelings are there, right?
Well, and I think the whole not feeling comes from, childhood, right? Like how often do you see a child that's crying and the parent is saying, "You're fine. You're
Hmm.
okay. Stop crying."
Right.
We're not even allowed to feel from a young age. So we are taught it's not okay. It's not safe,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
There's a story of when I was a child, I used to stop breathing when I cried. And there's a story that my
Oh,
mom like threw me to my dad in panic of me crying. And it's still to this day,
wow.
it takes a lot for me to cry. Like I can feel the feelings, but sometimes I can feel the tears and then they go away and I'm like, what just happened, right? Because that ingrained piece, right? I've worked on it, just still doesn't hasn't come, right? But
Mhm.
like I don't remember that. That's not something I remember. I was an infant. but it's still a part of my nervous system.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing that happens in the brain, right? It's like
Right,
it's got a pattern that's very well established.
right.
Yeah. So what happens when people come to you? Like, I'm just thinking about our listeners. Like, some people will be like, okay, well, I love being busy. Like, I want to be busier, or I really love being busy. And other people are suffering from that addiction. What do you notice in the people that are actually struggling and having a hard time?
Yeah. So the people who say I want to be busier, I would question why. I would want to talk to them more.
Yes.
The people who know that they're being busy, but they don't know how or they don't know why, we really break it down, right? Like giving them, like, take a breath,
Mm,
right? Breathing, tapping throughout the day, like putting stop gaps in their day where they are taking some time. And here's the thing, life is busy, right? We'd all love to sit around and eat bonbons, but unfortunately, life is busy. But it's that awareness of it, right? It's that awareness of, are you being busy because you're avoiding something?
mhm.
Or is it just a time in your life where things, I have a client who had a lot of busyness going on, but it was like survival, right? Like she just had a lot of stuff going on, and now she's slowed down and she's trying to regulate herself because she's been so busy, but she's trying to add things in that are for her to take care of her, like her yoga practice or exercise or whatever, and not stuff to keep her
Right.
busy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that reminds me of what happens for me. And so I want to make a little distinction here. Sometimes there's okay, we've had this childhood trauma or this loss. We were talking about that before we came on air about loss. And we might be covering that up with keeping busy.
Right.
That might be a pattern, right? You said like I didn't weigh 300 pounds because I was hungry.
Right.
Right. So,
Yeah.
and we all have our experience with our, human addictions to that.
Yeah.
Then there's just this sort of accumulation of stress from daily living. And that I know for me, like for example, I have what's called a Havurah. It's like a Jewish community that meets. It's not a synagogue, but it's like a group of people and somebody leads, and we meet like once a month. And I went recently, a couple weeks ago, and I sat down and I went by myself, and there was like just a couple people there, and there was some music playing, and people were sort of just sitting quietly. I sat down and took a breath, and I just started crying.
Mm,
And it wasn't like I'm crying about this, or I'm crying because now I'm doing the next level of or layer of grief around this that happened in my past, or it wasn't that. It was just the release of whatever I'd been carrying, work, kids, a friend who was not feeling well, like all the things, just all the
right.
things, taking out the trash every Monday, like all the things, whatever they are, without actually giving myself a real break and downtime just to like be with myself for a few moments.
Right.
Definitely some things in my life have been especially busy right now. Um, so it was a little more, but I was actually really surprised that I started weeping.
Mm,
And I was really grateful. Someone came over to me a couple hours in, and the whole thing was, it was probably 3 hours. So it might have been like an hour and a half in. And she
wow.
was like, do you have COVID? Are you sniffling? I'm like, no, I'm weeping. I'm, I'm weeping and I'm gonna keep weeping.
Right, right.
I just was crying and crying, like just letting out the
Yeah,
stress that I was holding in my body tightly, you know?
right. And you would allowed yourself to actually relax. That's the other thing. We
Yeah.
rarely allow ourselves to relax.
Mm,
Often I start my clients with just a grounding meditation and starting, from their head and moving all the way down their body and breathing. And I do that for me as much as I do it for them because it brings us into the space of being together because we're like, even myself, sometimes I'm like, all right, finish one client. I can go to the bathroom and then I'm on to the next, right? But like, okay, how do I then get into the space of that, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
allowing ourselves that opportunity to just be in that space.
So important every day. I don't know what you do for yourself, Francine, but I take as many baths as I can in a week. That is for me.
Never been a bath person. Ever
Oh,
since I bought my house, because I think it's still like the old bathtub from who, I've been in my house 25 years, so it's been here for longer. Um, you know, I've always meditated off and on since the beginning of the year. I don't think I've missed a day of meditation, even when it feels like it's quick or I fell asleep during it. I usually do meditate first thing in the morning, but it's been something that I've really been trying to like be committed to. And
mhm.
then physical exercise, I mentioned before we got on, I'm recovering from knee replacement surgery. So really trying to, doing my PT exercises, but then also doing exercises to care for the rest of my body. Because I've always felt good when I worked out, but because of the surgery, I really haven't been able to. Like that is to me is another form of meditation is working out. I've always enjoyed it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, for me, it's about 10 minutes of meditation a day, which really isn't enough for me. It takes me about 20 minutes to kind of really drop in, but I
Yeah.
have a practice with a group that's 10 minutes a day. So I do
I
that
get that.
because, as we say, a little bit of meditation is better than no meditation.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And then for
Yep. For
me,
me, it can be anywhere from 10 minutes to 30, depending upon how late I woke up. Sometimes I do it in bed. I've been actually trying to get out of bed because I do think I'm better sitting,
yeah,
but sometimes it's nice to just lay there and just put the earbuds and
yes.
just go.
And then I fall right asleep. So
I know that's the
that's then
problem. Then I
considered
fall
a
back to
nap.
sleep. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, baths, meditation, walking, biking,
Yeah.
the pause built into the day is so important.
For me, it's being in community. I love connections. Like my top value is connection. So being with others, having dinner with a girlfriend, spending time with my husband, with my sisters, like I really enjoy being in community and
Yeah.
in connection.
Yeah. Yes, and you find that fills you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're more of an extrovert than an introvert.
I've probably post COVID, I can be a little introverted at time, but I would say my extrovert is definitely in the forefront. There
Yeah.
are times I'm like, do I really have to leave the house? Really?
Right.
But for the most part, I'm the person who's like, hey, let's grab dinner. Hey, want to go out? And yeah, if
Mhm.
you could see my calendar for the last 2 weeks, I've been out almost every day. And I'm like, this needs to end soon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to remember those things. Just
Yeah.
even to have little reminders of pausing in the day or taking a break or actually giving yourself a lunch break. So it
Yeah.
seems like, yeah, it's been really alive for you. And I'm not surprised because things are moving so fast. And I'm imagining that your clients are, talking about that and experiencing that in their bodies and
Yeah.
needing to lower their blood pressure and take better care of themselves, get healthier, feel more peace.
Yes, and it's all of it, right? I do a wheel of life when I work with my clients and you rate the different areas. I think there's 10 different areas of your life. And often they're not all even, right?
Right.
And it's when certain areas are off, all of you was it's like, riding a flat tire, driving with a flat tire, right? So
Yeah.
it's like understanding what areas of your life are off. It's not that you want it's you rate your areas from 1 to 10. The goal is not to have everything be a 10, but to maybe have something be not be a 2 and something else be an 8. Maybe everything's a 5,
Hmm.
right? Or a 6. Right. So finding the balance and where are you off balance and where can you, pull back from, right? If you're spiritual, if you're meditating 2 hours a day, but you're spending no time with your partner or your kids, maybe you cut back on meditating an hour a day, right? Where can you find some balance in your life?
Yeah. Well, that makes me curious to ask, like our listeners can think about this while we're just talking about it. Like, not to name all 10 on the wheel of life because they can work with you to do that. But name a couple of them and
Yeah.
how do we rate
Um,
it? 10 would be
10 is best
how
and
good
one
it
would be
feels.
like really bad. Yeah, like how you feel you are in that area. So like it's spiritual, right?
Okay.
Physical, um relationships. They have social and intimate relationships, financial, work.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've lost that's all you're gonna get. Those
Yeah,
are the
yeah,
only ones I can do off the but right, so imagine if you're rating it
yeah,
and financial is a 2, but your spiritual is a 10,
yeah.
right? So what do you need to balance?
Right.
Or your physical is an 8, but your intimate is a 3.
Mm,
Right? Are you spending so much time at the gym that you're not right? So like understanding
yeah.
why, right? And then where can you pull in from some to give to another?
Yeah, and also looking at priorities, I guess that's
Right. Yep.
ended up here. It's like if the physical is an 8 or a 9 because you go to the gym 6 days a week and your intimacy is a 2, but you actually are craving intimacy in your life, if
Right.
you're not partnered, then what are you doing to balance that or offset that? And if you are partnered and think you're struggling, then
Right.
what can be done to support you in that realm as well? Yeah, that's really helpful. That's
Yeah.
really helpful. I hope that our listeners caught some of those, or if you're listening to the recording, please, press that go back 10 seconds and replay those categories, and then take a moment to think about like where you are in your own life, and then where things are in balance, where things are out of balance, and also about your priorities. I think priorities and values really fits right in there. Yeah. All right, we're going to go on a commercial break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Come Back to Love Radio. We are on Dream Vision 7 today with Francine Tirrell. I'm Robyn Vogel, your host, and we are in our last segment of today's episode. I would love to hear, Francine, just what you've been offering currently in the world. I am one who gets your newsletter and reads it, so highly recommend going to Francine's website and getting on her list. You're always doing some really cool, for me, really interesting things that I
Thank you.
feel are very accessible to people. So
Thank
what's
you.
coming up? What's on the docket?
Yeah, so I've got some in-person stuff coming up, but I'll talk more about the online stuff. So people can work with me one-on-one. So I have some spots open through the summer for one-on-one. So people can go to my website, foreverchangecoaching.com, and schedule a call and we can see if it's a good fit. I also have a 6-week workshop starting in September that I'm really excited about. It's called From Overwhelm to Thriving.
Ooh.
And it's a 6-week reset to reset your time and energy. And I'm going to be combining coaching with EFT and these energetic codes that I use, where the codes release energetic imprints. So shame might be something that you work with, and it releases the imprint of shame. And
Mm,
I'm going to get a little woo. It could be this lifetime or other lifetimes,
yep.
but because it's your energy system. So that's on my website as well under the events tab. And then if they go to my website, they can sign up for my newsletter, but also to find out if they're ready for a big ass up level, which is what I do with my
Mm.
clients. And there's a questionnaire and a checklist with some journal prompts. Sorry, I sneezed a little. Or, with some journal prompts that will help them figure out how to get their big ass up level.
Nice, nice. Because it's not always the right time, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that's a little self-assessment tool to see like,
Yes,
is it
yes,
the right time? And is it the right time to work with Francine one-on-one or in one of your groups? I love the title From Overwhelm to Thriving. Is that what you said?
yes,
Well,
yeah,
Thrive. Yeah. Overwhelm is just so prevalent and so
right,
challenging when I'm in overwhelm. It's so hard
right.
to do anything. So I
And it's
love,
hard to even take a step back and recognize sometimes that we're in the overwhelm
yes.
because
Yes.
it just feels so natural. It's part of the busyness, right? It just
Right.
feels so natural and normal. Yeah.
Yeah. September is a great time because it's like, it's not the new year, but it's kind of the new year. school
Yeah, I
week.
was going to do it over the summer and I thought, no, we're
No,
going to wait till
September's
fall.
perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Things
yeah,
get going again after summer. So how to move into the next season, not
right.
being overwhelmed. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I really appreciate our conversation. And it feels like we did like two in one because we got all of the conversation about matchmaking and relationship and yeah,
Yeah.
this next piece on overwhelm and busyness and how to slow down and reconnect with ourselves. So I'm wishing everybody a nice deep breath, reconnection to yourself and your being and your body. And we'll see you next week on Thursday for our next set of live radio shows on Thursday, 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful day.